Welcome to Weekly Fixed. I'm your co-host Jacob, and joining me as always is my good friend Zane. We have another great episode for you guys. As always, we're going to be breaking down the rest of the Fallout show because Zane was able to finish it up, and I think he's going to have some interesting takes that I'm excited to debate with him. But before we get into any of that, Zane, how was your week?
It was good. It's getting off to a pretty good start. Work has not been terrible, so that's good. Um, we've had a good night already, and then the weekend was pretty good. But we do have a very busy next few weeks, traveling over the next week, and then we don't have a free weekend until halfway through June. So it's definitely going to start filling up, and that's exciting. That means we got a lot going on, but it also is very busy. So that's what that is. But what about you? How have you been?
Oh, it's been an interesting week. We are super busy with all sorts of stuff going on. I had some sicknesses that I've been dealing with this past weekend. But all in all, it's been good. Always enjoying some stuff. We had some fun trailers we're going to get to break down here in just a few minutes. But before we get into any of that, a little bit of housekeeping we can touch up on. If you guys, you listeners, have not seen it already, we have branched out onto Instagram and X. So if that's something you guys are interested with, make sure to go and follow us over on those platforms. We will have those linked down in the description. And we're doing a lot of fun stuff on there. We're going to try to be more interactive with you all. And now you guys have a surefire way to send us messages. If you were a little iffy about messaging one of us personally or anything like that, now you have a direct account that you can message where both of us will be able to see it, which is always awesome. And we're going to be doing some really cool stuff on there, like running polls, talking about shows and trailers, just a lot more content. So if that's something you guys are interested in, I know I'm super excited about it. So that's one thing that we have been working on this past week. I think we're really about to start picking up a lot of new stuff with the podcast. Like we talked about, we're going to be having the Comic Corner here coming very soon. We're still debating on some comics that we want to read and discuss with you guys, but I think Zane has one that he's pretty excited about that I think is going to be a great entry into our Comic Corner. Zane, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, just thinking about the War of the Realms. It was a comic book run that I was late on upon release. Right when I started reading a bunch of comics, and so I was a few issues short into that. It's a multi-dimensional crossover for Marvel, and it seemed like a really good time. I saw a ton of comic like just runs in it and panels and kind of what was going on in it, and it was super intriguing. But I was so far behind I couldn't pick up the issues, and they're just now getting like stocked in the Marvel backstock. So I've been able to pick up quite a few of those. So I'm really excited about maybe getting more of those and starting that comic run because it has pretty good reviews, and it's just something I haven't read, but I've been looking forward to for several years because it was something I missed out on. But now I'm getting the chance to find it in my local comic book stores.
Well, being late to something like that isn't necessarily always a bad thing, right? I mean, we talk about it with shows all the time. Sometimes you don't have to wait for the next one to come out, and you can kind of just either read through it or binge through it. So that's always fun. You don't have to wait for stuff. I know you sent me a few pictures of some of the comics that you recently picked up, and I got to say, the cover arts alone make me interested in how cool the story this could be.
Yeah, it definitely is a very colorful, vibrant comics, which is one of the things I like the most about comics is just the artwork in them. So that's definitely something that drew me to it immediately, and then just the wackiness that does ensue with getting to see characters outside of their normal arcs in all these different realms, different timepieces. So that's really always super fun to see your character just twist a little bit. We love the What If series, and I think this is What If on steroids. So,
Well, it's funny, talking about stuff like this. I used to only be the type of person that only liked reading stuff or watching stuff if it was canon to whatever it was. Marvel, I like sticking to like that original canon storyline, that real timeline that we were on. But I will say with what Marvel has done, it's really helped me to just enjoy different stories in different universes, but still with those same type of characters, even though it might be a variant of that character. I've really learned to just enjoy the story rather than being, upset or disappointed in the fact that it wasn't canon. So that's made me enjoy comics as a whole lot more, which has been really fun.
oh, I'm sure because I mean, there's so many out there that don't like cannot aren't super canon, or
Yeah.
maybe mess with lore, or like maybe this is a run that you didn't really love what they did with the character, changing it. So it's always fun to be able to just accept it as a story. I know my wife really hates the whole multiverse thing for a long time, but actually Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is actually what got her on board with, this can be fun. This can be intriguing, and like we can have a good time with it. And so that movie actually helped a lot of people come around to how good the multiverse can be.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that it's helped me a lot too. And I would honestly say, I would say probably that movie has also helped me a lot with just because we wouldn't be able to get a lot of the things that we get if it wasn't for being able to intertwine these stories and stuff like that. And it makes it a whole lot more fun. So I'm thankful that I've come around to the fact because it's really just opened up a whole nother genre, a whole plethora of things to read and watch, which normally I would have passed up on. But sticking with Marvel, before we get into the breakdown of Fallout, we had a big trailer drop this week, and I know me personally, I am super, super pumped about it. We had the second trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine, and I gotta say, it gave me everything I was hoping for in a trailer. It showed some great action. It really showed Wolverine finally for the first time. I got to say, he looks amazing. Deadpool always is awesome. I think Ryan Reynolds does an amazing job playing that character. Hugh Jackman is born to play Wolverine, and I think this trailer really showed a lot of those awesome aspects. But Zane, what did you think of the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer?
Yeah, I've got a ton of big props to give them. Full sending to keep the tone appropriate for a Deadpool film. Now,
Yeah.
personally, that's not that's a negative and a positive for me, because I do have Christian morals and worldview. Some of the language and context does actually it makes me cringe a little bit. However, for the character, it is a good thing that they're letting Ryan Reynolds run with it. And I know a lot of people will be really happy with that. It looked really good, and I mean, there is no question this is going to be a rated R film. I mean, the trailer was rated R.
You're right.
So, um, but aside from that, looked absolutely good, really good. I'm really interested with the story they're giving. What Wolverine are we going to get? How many Wolverines are we going to get? What is happening to Deadpool's universe that it's imploding, that he has to save? What exactly does he need to do to save it? And so we got the storyline of the movie without giving too much away, which is a big problem I usually have with trailers, is it gives too much away. This movie gave us pretty much exactly what a trailer should. It gives us excitement for the film, a sneak peek of what the action's going to look like, what we can expect, and then the overall story, but without giving away anything. And I'm fully in on this one. Like we said, it is super anticipated. My only cons for this so far is that the language, and then I really didn't like the blasphemy he said in the first trailer, which it wasn't in this trailer, but we know it's going to be there. So so many Easter eggs that we can talk about. But for you, was there anything that stood out above the rest that you're super excited for?
I think one thing, and you did touch on a little bit, is the action. And I feel like that's one thing that has been lacking a little bit in Marvel movies recently. Now, we've had some really great action scenes, and one I always go back to is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think that hallway action scene is one of the best action scenes we've ever gotten in Marvel. Absolutely loved it. But aside from that, I feel like the action, and not necessarily just like the explosions and the cool stuff happening on screen, but just the choreography of the fights is where I've noticed a lot of things lacking. I think we can say the same thing about Star Wars, is they've definitely been on a downward trend as far as what we're accustomed to. With the prequels, we had some of the best choreographed fights we've ever seen. I think some of those earlier Marvel movies were much better than what we've had recently. And just the little bit that we've seen here, I mean, we get to see Deadpool and Wolverine kind of going at it a little bit, and I thought the choreography was incredible. I think the cinematography for the movie is another thing that's standing out. I love some of the camera angles we're getting for some of these scenes. I think that can make all the difference in a movie. So that's one thing I'm super excited for. But I think you touched on a lot of the other things. I think the story is going to be really intriguing because I know we're both left with a lot of questions about what Wolverines are we getting? Obviously, I think there's going to be multiple variants of Wolverine that we're going to see. I think we're going to see some variants of Deadpool. I think they've already hinted at that a little bit with Dogpool that we saw in the trailer, which I thought was funny. So we're definitely going to get some fun variants. And I'm excited just to see where they go. I think Kevin Feige is really starting to get a grip back on what Marvel should and needs to be. And I'm excited for him to really get back to storytelling that I think he wants to tell. I feel like a lot of things he may have been being pushed a little bit by Disney, because we know how Disney is. They can have their hands in everything that's going on. So I think this is one that they're kind of letting him get back to his roots on, back to some of the stuff he wants to tell. And I'm really excited for this story.
Yeah, they the action does look super good. Now, and we talked about variants of Wolverine, and I love to theorize, and I know you do too. So we see the yellow suit Wolverine, full out,
Yep.
decked out, and then later we see him in the full suit without his sleeves.
Yep.
Do you think he's going to get his arms cut off?
Man, I really, honestly, I think it's very likely in a movie that just as much gore as we saw in the trailer, right? I think it is very likely. I know when Deadpool is fighting those TVA agents, I mean, he is ripping through them. I mean, there's blood splattering. He's cutting off limbs. I don't know. I've also going back and forth with maybe that's just a completely different version of Wolverine that's sleeveless. I mean, there's so many possibilities for what it could be. But man, I think that would be something if we got to see that level of gore. I know it's a rated R movie, but just for Marvel to be committing so heavily to it, that would be pretty cool.
In both of the previous Deadpool films, Deadpool loses a limb.
Yeah.
And we get to see baby feet. We get to see baby hand. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he loses.
We see some baby arms.
His sleeves. Yeah, we see baby arm Wolverine with tiny claws. Although I'm not quite sure that's how his healing factor works.
But it's fun to think about.
Yeah. Between the two of them, they both have a pretty substantial healing factor. Wade's is actually worse because he's constantly fighting the disease. Now, Wolverine's does slower the older he gets because he starts to get the adamantium poisoning. So there's definitely, I'm curious at what point in his life form, because that's the only reason we saw Logan as weak as he was, because of the adamantium poison. So I'm curious if his short claws joke, the whiskey, whiskey affecting his claws might be because he is a little bit older and he's struggling with some of that healing factor issues. Which, I mean, is always more fun when your character can get hurt. I would say
it just raises the stakes.
Yeah, it raises the stakes a little bit, and I mean, we're going up against. I know you saw Alioth in the film from Loki, which means we're in the void. So we're definitely at the end of time in the void during this movie, which is going to be a blast because you can really do whatever you want in the void. I'm assuming that's where we see giant Ant-Man, little Ant-Man base, which is a pretty cool shout out there. And then the biggest thing I kind of saw that I was really excited for, the anti Professor X with the what's her name, Cassandra Nova, playing his evil twin. That's going to be fun. But the sling ring, which is allowing them to teleport to who is doing that, that's super interesting because it doesn't have to be Doctor Strange. It can literally be anyone with a sling ring.
It could be Ned from Spider-Man. I mean,
yeah, we see Ned pop up. He's like, "Bring me,"
and he's the Hobgoblin now. Yeah. But dude, I think that's a big question I'm interested in is how are they getting around? Obviously, we know the TVA is there, and the TVA has their time portals and all that stuff. But this is completely different. The rings are, their own set of things. I think that's going to be something really interesting to see. I've seen a lot of people say in comments of the trailer. I always like reading through the comments and seeing some of the things people are thinking. I've heard some people say that's them jumping into the MCU, which I think is pretty funny. It's just going to be really interesting to see. Now, I know one thing that I remember back in She-Hulk is there's a scene where there's like a newspaper or something like that, and we see it says, I think it says like man fights in bar with claws or something like
With
that.
metal claws, yeah.
With metal claws. So I'm interested to see if maybe this at the very beginning, this already is our MCU, that the beginning of the trailer at least, where we see the man say, "Hey, you're not welcome in my bar." Maybe that's because he's had problems with Wolverine fighting people in his bar. So it's got so many interesting questions, so many things. But yeah, I'm interested. I think that's a great point to bring up, is who is, giving them these rings to jump through and push them through time.
Yeah. So it, man, a bunch of fun. I hope it's a fun ride. And it looks really good. You did touch on the gore. That scene in the woods is my one visual issue with the trailer, was that blood, dude. It looks unnatural.
It
It's
looks a little thick.
super red. It's super
Yeah.
fake. And I'm like, okay, guys, like, we understand it's an R-rated film, like, but like, make it look real. Like, make it look Punisher. Like, if you're going to
Yes.
go for it, go for it. Like, don't give me fake blood. Like, that's just like, when something looks over the top gruesome, for me it's worse. For me it's worse to be over the top gruesome than just actually like what it would naturally do. And I think it was just the brightness of it that was like, I don't know, something was off with it. It was a little uncanny valley there, with that scene. But hopefully they dial it in, and it's super super good. And hopefully it's watchable for me, because I do, man. If it's just the most grotesque film, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to sit through that one.
Well, especially if it's just unnecessary, right? Like if they're just doing it
Yes.
just to do it, which is so easy to tell. You spoke on the language of the movie. Obviously, it is in play for Deadpool, and but they still need to do it. It can't just be thoughtless. You have to be putting these words in spots that kind of make sense, because if not, it does just seem so forced, right? It sounds like that kid in third grade that just learned how to say it for the first time, right? You don't want that in these type of movies. You want them to actually have some impact and some stuff like that, and maybe drive the scene a little further, and I hope that's the same thing like you're saying. I hope they're not doing it just to do it. I hope it's actually stuff that they put some thought into. And one good thing about, at least if it is a trailer. So, maybe that blood they touch up a little bit in post-production. I'm sure this movie's probably already gone through a lot of it, because, it is coming out in July. So we're probably starting to see a very close to finished product with a lot of this stuff. But I feel the same way as you. I hope they do touch up on some stuff. And I hope it is not forced and just looks so out there that you just can tell, yeah, they just did that because it's R-rated.
Yeah, which I don't think the majority of it will be, but I think we'll definitely get some of that. I mean, the language is going to be forced somewhat, because
Yeah,
it's just
it's
unnecessary
Deadpool.
to speak like
Yep.
that regardless. However, if anyone could pull it off, it's Ryan Reynolds. I mean, he is an awesome actor. Like,
He is
absolutely
awesome.
awesome. He's got the charisma to be able to do it. If anyone could cuss me out, it's probably going to be Ryan Reynolds, So, but
Would be the one person you'd welcome it to. Like, you know what?
well,
I'd allow him to do it once,
Yeah,
just to
give him a
get cursed out
pass.
by Deadpool.
Yeah, give him a pass.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm super excited for it. There's obviously so much we can dive into with it. I haven't watched any breakdown of the trailers, and I know Zane hasn't either, so there's probably a lot of stuff we haven't even touched on. But one of the things I did pick up on was, it looked like in that one scene where we see Deadpool and Wolverine walk out, sleeveless Wolverine, they walk out from around that, I think it's a bus. It does look like Deadpool has some gold guns in his hand, which we know that's not normally what our version of Deadpool is carrying. So obviously he has to get those from somewhere. And I'm wondering if we're going to see Deadpool even fight some other variants of himself, which I think that would be an incredible mirror type match, because there's no one that quite fights like Deadpool does in the MCU. Obviously he's got a lot of people that fight similarly, but just the style in which he does stuff, and the disregard for taking damage because he knows he can take a stab and stuff like that. I think that's going to be a really interesting thing if we get to see something like that. Do you anticipate us seeing a Deadpool versus Deadpool, or even a Wolverine versus Wolverine style fight?
I definitely expect to see multiple variants of them both. I don't know how much of the fights we'll see. I think it's going to be a jam-packed film. So, depending on, like, I don't even know how many cameos we're getting, what type of, because it's definitely going to be cameo heavy with the multiverse. Yeah. They're throwing everything at this. This is the introduction to the X-Men into the the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's going to go hard. So I don't know how much time we'll spend on them fighting themselves, more than them each other, but I think we'll definitely see at least a little bit of that, even if it's like jumping through a portal and we see a bunch of Deadpools fighting each other and jump through the other side, like into like a little Deadpool bar where they're all just trying to kill each other, but they can't because they're all immortal.
Right.
I feel like that'd be pretty cool, pretty sick. And something like that I definitely could expect, but I don't know how much of the movie will be taken up by fighting themselves.
Now, one thing that you touched on that I'm excited for is we know this is going to be cameo heavy. This is the start of the X-Men coming into the MCU and all that stuff. I also think this could be a little bit of a test for them to see how well the cameos are, I guess, accepted. We know something like the next Avengers movies, we know Secret Wars is probably going to have a lot of different people in it because it's supposed to. It's the multiversal war. I think this could also be a little bit of a test to see how well it is received, so they can know whether they need to dial it back with the cameos or maybe just even send it even harder. What do you think about something like that?
Yeah, I think it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be overwhelmingly heavy cameo for the MCU. I think it's going to be very cameo heavy for X-Men, and some of our other IPs that we have seen, but not excessively story wise. I think it'll be background. I think it'll be more of a tasteful Easter egg cameos than billboards in your face constantly. And I
Mhm.
hope they do that properly. But I can definitely see a ton of, we've already seen Pyro from the original X-Men. He was in the first trailer. He wasn't in this one, but, we know we're going to get some of that. If Josh Brolin doesn't show up, I'll be disappointed,
Oh, I know. I thought the
We
exact same thing. I was like, we need a Cable in this movie. I think it just makes so much sense.
and it also would make so much sense for Deadpool to be able to break the fourth wall at that point and be like, "Oh, your chin's normal this time in the MCU," or like something like that, to point out that he played Thanos as well. So I think we'll see heavy cameos used sparingly, if that makes any sense.
Do we see Doctor Strange?
I doubt we see Doctor Strange.
Okay. See, that's one I'm almost certain I feel like we will see, just in some form. I feel like he is just such at the center of this multiversal stuff going on, because we really know there's not a whole lot of MCU characters that even know about the multiverse at this point, right? We're still
That's
in the
true.
early stages of it. And Doctor Strange is kind of one of the people that figured it out on his own for the most part. He wasn't really told about it. He kind of just it happened.
Yeah, it
So
just
he's one of
happened
the
to him through the
people.
Mystic Arts.
Yeah. He's one that I think I would almost bet is more so likely to happen than a lot of others.
Okay.
But I have no idea. That's just, and I'm kind of hoping we do, because I feel like an interaction between him and Deadpool would be hilarious. I think it would just be constant jabs back and forth, because we know Doctor Strange is very witty and very quick to think light on his feet. So I think that would be an hilarious interaction. It's one I definitely want to see.
Well, and also one of the thing is we're getting disconnected from our core MCU. Which we've talked about. One of the issues is that we are not seeing the characters that we love enough. The character we've seen the most is Wong. So I think that's
Yeah,
also a very high potential that we see Wong in this instead of Doctor Strange, just a little bit lower price tag.
that could make sense.
He is the master of the mystic arts in the realm currently, on a technicality, as we know. So I do wish we get Doctor Strange. Like I want to see some of our original MCU 616 characters in the limelight again. Like we're not getting another movie this year. This is the only one. It's
Yep.
been 2 years since we've seen Doctor Strange. It's been, way too long since we've seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I know some of that footage was shown at Cinecon for his movie. But we haven't seen Shang-Chi since 2021. The Eternals are off, who knows where. So
They can stay away, honestly.
I mean, yes, but they're in it. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I get what you're saying.
and for some of the threats that are coming our way, we definitely are going to need some higher power levels. So
Yeah.
who
Now, my
knows?
next question, this one's very far out, and I don't expect to see this character in particular, but he is so connected to the multiverse. What about Spider-Man?
No chance.
No chance. Not even
No chance.
Tom Holland. Just something. Some version of him.
Not
Maybe it's
even an
just a
agent
split second.
Spider-Man. Not even
I
an
don't think.
agent Spider-Man.
I
They
don't
will
think so
not.
either. But I feel like they're pulling out all the stops. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe it's an end credit scene or something. Um,
I
I
will
don't
tell
know.
you this. I think the entire reason they don't want to do that is because they would then have to split the box office with
With
another
Sony,
company, with Sony,
yeah.
and they need a win.
They do. They desperately need one. And I think we both agree that I think this is going to be a big win for them. Now, I know we've gone back and forth on how well we think this is going to do at the box office. I'm under the impression it's going to do really, really well. I know you were on the fence that it might not rival some of those Avengers movies or even Spider-Man. Has any of these trailers changed your mind at this point, or are you still holding strong that it's probably not going to hit that billion-dollar mark?
I think it's, if anything, more solidified it in my mind. Now I know that your faith in the local family here in the great USA, is wavering, and you think that parents are just going to drag their kids to this
Yep,
film, but
I do.
I really hope they don't. Just, I mean, because even in the trailers, it's just too much. It's too much for anyone. I mean, honestly, it's probably too much for adults to be, searing their conscience with. But definitely for children, it's not something I want to be dragging any child to at
Yeah.
all. Now, I know there will be some, but just on the absolute family unit, I cannot see as many like 5 ticket families coming to this as there were for Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Um, you just like, there will be holdouts for that. And the same people that would see this one multiple times saw all those other ones multiple times. So I just don't see the level of success on this one to rival those when there is a significant deterrent to a broad audience.
You think this hits more at like the Guardians Volume 3 level?
I can definitely see Guardians Volume 3 level. Definitely sub a billion. Is what I'm guessing. I'm guessing high. Probably 750 million is what I'm guessing. I'm guessing 700 million worldwide.
Which would be absolutely fantastic for what they're needing right now.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be very big. I don't have any delusions that they're not going to make money on this, but I just don't think it's going to be, especially with where Marvel's currently at. And I just don't see that huge dollar sign that we've seen on some of the others.
Now, we've had some pretty great movies this year. I mean, Dune 2 is arguably the best movie we've ever seen in theaters. I think we can both agree on. Do you think this movie has a chance at even overtaking that spotlight of the best movie of the year? Or do you think it's just not going to quite hit like Dune 2 did?
Oh, man.
And it's tough because I know how much you're a Marvel fan, right? So you already have that going for you. So that's why I'm interested to see if you think this even has potential to maybe knock off your top list.
I just don't. I don't think that the sci-fi cinematic masterpiece of Dune Part 2 could be topped for me this year. From what I've seen on the list, it's just like, this is going to be a fun movie. It may be more fun to watch, but as far as like, is it a better film? I just don't see that coming. The source material is just so good. The message behind Dune is, there is a message, and it, people in power using things to manipulate is terrible. Like, there is so many layers to Dune. You can watch it 5 different times. You're going to pick up something new each time. I just don't think that this will be more of the wow, eye candy, junk food kind of like best, that best blockbuster. But as far as best movie overall, I don't think it's going to top it.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way with you. I think it's going to be more fun potentially, and that's just because there's going to be so much more action. Dune was so story driven, which is what you want in a film. And that's probably the reason it's not going to quite get to that level. But I think you hit it perfectly. I think the eye candy will be there. Obviously, it's Marvel, so these characters were just so beloved already. Whereas the Dune characters we're still learning to love in a sense because we've only gotten 1 movie of them up till this point. Now we have 2. So I think that's going to be some of the things that do help this movie. But I think I'm right there with you. Now, that's
I have
all.
I have 70 Marvel Funko Pops and only 2 Dune ones, so there is a hedged bet. But Dune is my only Funko Pops other than Marvel.
and that says something, you know. So I do that a lot of the time. I'll be like, huh, I wonder which one I like better, and I'm like, I do have more of these Funko Pops, so I guess technically I
That's
do like
funny.
that one better.
That's awesome.
But other than that, that's all the Deadpool and Wolverine things that I had to touch on. Were there any other little things that you wanted to speak on before we moved on to the next topic?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. We definitely didn't do a full deep dive
No,
into
no.
this, all the cameos and Easter eggs in there because there was a bunch of them. But for the most part, that's definitely where I stand with what that trailer did for me.
Yeah, and I'm super excited for it. I know you are. But something that we have both gotten to fully watch now is the Fallout show. Now, you guys know I had finished it up, and we did a little bit of a halfway point discussion on the last episode of Weekly Fix here. But Zane has finally finished it, and he let me know a little bit beforehand that I might not be happy with what he thought of the ending. So, Zane, tell me what you thought about how the show wrapped up.
Oh man, there. So I think part of the issue is that you rated it a 10. And so I know that going into my final 4 episodes, and I'm like, man, what is going to take this from a 7, 8, I think I was sitting right at an 8 to a 10.
Mhm.
And so I was super intrigued by that and just kind of watching for it. So, but man, there's some plot holes. There's some things that don't make sense. There's some visuals that like really don't just aren't up to par, honestly. Um, and so I don't want to be just completely negative because the show was good. The show is very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will be watching season 2. It was good. There's a bunch of pros. I think the standout for me for not the obvious. Obviously, the ghoul is the best part of the show, and
Yeah.
Lucy. But man, I absolutely love Thaddeus. I think, dude,
I told you like his little story that he has, and we're gonna see him again. I think season 2 he will definitely show back up.
dude, he is just a hilarious, just dork running around. He's like trying to make it, and he's just funny. That's just a funny dude. Like, I'm sure that actor is just a joy to be around. Unless he's complete jerk, but absolutely hilarious. And that's honestly where I'm going to start off, like some of my critique of it, and that is with Maximus. Now, guys, this is full of spoilers. Um, actually, let's go no spoilers real quick. No spoilers real quick. So tune back in if you tuned out. But
Flip that switch right back off.
yeah, so go back. No. So overall show very good. There's definitely plot holes. There's visuals that probably aren't up to par with some of the others, and I think the inconsistency in the visuals was what hurt me there at the end. Was some look absolutely great, and then there's moments where you're like, oh my gosh, is that a painting? So that was some issues, but the other things with the story was that they were very, very thought provoking, very fun. There's a gratuitous nudity scene, which automatically drops down my rating. Absolutely no reason for it. Um, Everything with the vaults are amazing. Everything with the flashbacks are amazing. The Steel Watch storyline leads something to be desired, and
Yeah,
then the man, I'm already Moldova. Is it her?
Moldaver.
Moldaver. Yeah, big things to lack on her storyline. Some of the motivations for our hero slash villains don't make sense. Why they did some of the things that they did. So we'll touch on all those in stories, but yeah, I would definitely recommend a watch. But it's definitely not perfect for me. It's probably hovering. So there. I don't want to. 7 seems too low. 8 seems too high. I really want to give it a 7.5, but I don't give halves because I feel like it's cheating. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8. 8 out of 10 for this, with the promise of things to come.
I think that's fair. Like I said, I think some of the things you've touched on, we'll get into the spoilers here in a second. I think having played the games really helped me with the story and the thought process of the way they were doing things. And that's why I'm excited for you when you do get around to playing some of the games, that maybe it might help your score when you start learning more about just the Fallout world in general and the way some things are done in that gaming world. I think it could help you, because I know it definitely helped me with some of the things. Speaking on Moldaver, there's always already so many theories about why she was the way she is. And so those are things I'm excited to talk about. But I think 8 is a very fair score, based off of the things you didn't like. And some of those things that you didn't like, I agree with. They weren't the best. I just think overall the world and the story that we did get was so good in my mind, being someone that was a fan of the games. It just hit different for me. And I think that's just why I loved it so much.
You still so even after recency bias has worn off, you're still sitting at a 10?
Yeah, I still love the show. Like, it's a show I would watch again. And I don't watch shows again. And I just loved so many things about it. So that's why I'm excited to talk about some of the things that you didn't like. I want to hear some of the plot holes that you didn't agree with and stuff like that. So I think now is a perfect time. We will get into the spoiler section. So if you guys haven't watched the show, make sure to click off now and come back at a later time. However, spoilers, all into it. What are some of the problems that you had and some of the storylines that you didn't like as much?
So the biggest storyline I didn't like was I didn't like Maximus. Pretty much at all. And so part of that is we see in the end that he, surprise, he didn't cut her foot or his foot. It was, they did it themselves because they were scared.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't the story doesn't show that. The story shows him as this scummy, I want power, I'm all in it for me person who would have done that. And just because he didn't doesn't take away from all the other actions that shows that he would. He just let the knight who he was assigned to protect die in front of him. He he has this moment with Thaddeus, and then he decides, I'm lying, I'm going to reveal myself to him. And Thaddeus doesn't take it well, and he decides, I got to run and tell everyone. Well, a decent person says, you know what? Like go tell, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to get away, I'm going to run or something. No, dude tries to straight up murk the dude with his steel watch armor. And it's like, what in the mess is going on? Like, how is this guy ever going to be redeemable? He lies constantly. And then at the end of the movie, when he's with Lucy and he's like, I'll take the fake head to the steel watch and let you go. And then immediately bring them to her. Like, what is his thought process? Like that, like you could have just not taken them to her and been sacrificial and like, okay, there's a redeeming character arc. But no, like, first off, how did you even know where she was? You didn't have the tracker. She didn't tell you where it was. You didn't have the GPS coordinates. There's nothing in the head that you're looking for. So that's also very confusing. And you all fly directly there. And so like his whole storyline, and then at the end, dude takes a freaking punch in the face from one of those suits, bounces off the table. That dude should be dead as a doornail. Like, dude, explain that to me. The dude who just jumped in this suit is full up ready. He's not holding back. He doesn't even know how to use the suit. Smacks him with a backhand that bounces his head off the table like he's a freaking rag doll. And dude wakes up like 2 minutes later with no pain, mind you. Same suit that threw a rock through a building and made it collapse.
So one of the things that you touched on with why did he bring them straight to where Lucy was going? That was actually something that they did touch on. Lucy said he would help her because Lucy didn't anticipate where she was going to be such a kind and inviting place. She expected to have to go in there guns blazing. So that was one of the reasons why he was bringing them with them, is because she was going to need backup, because she didn't care about what was in the head. She didn't care about any of that stuff. All she cared about was getting her dad back. The Brotherhood is who wanted that aspect of it.
But you think that he thought that they would treat her with respect?
I don't think I think he was just expecting her just to be gone. He's going to help her get her dad back. and they're just going to be on their way. I don't think that they really had much more incentive other than he was just trying to help her do that. Which she does request. She does ask. Earlier on, she's like, "Do you have more people with these type of suits? I could really use that type of help." So I think that's kind of the process with that there.
But man, he's got to know they're not going to help her. Like, these are terrible people.
So this is one of those things that a lot of people are going back and forth on. In the world of Fallout, there are things known as synths, which are basically like robotic beings. And there's a lot of people that are anticipating one of these main characters to have been a synth, and they just haven't revealed that yet because it's not something that gets touched on immediately in the games either. That is something that you do go a little bit farther into the games after you've played a couple of them, that you start to really learn about what these people are.
Well, so a lot of people Maximus, do think
then. That's what a lot of people are saying. There's a lot of people are saying the reason he acts the way he does and, says the things he does is because he's not really a person. So I think when I heard that like
super, are they super like realistic? Because I mean, he took a bullet to the arm. They had surgery on him.
Yes, you cannot tell the difference. They are. Okay. It is very, very difficult to tell the difference between them. To the point, so like in the video games, I think it's Fallout 4. People are paranoid about it, and just about every conversation you have, it gets brought up like, "Hey, I don't know if I can trust you because you might be a synth." So that is something that when I started hearing that aspect of the story, and it's something that they're supposedly going to be touching on in season 2, it definitely helped me appreciate his character a little bit better. Because if we do get to the point where it comes around that is potentially who he is, it would make so much sense for the reason why he acts the way he does. It's because he doesn't think logically like a human.
And how he survived a nuclear blast with a hole in the back of a refrigerator.
Exactly, and how he's able to survive these big hits and stuff.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I still don't like him, but...
And if they're going to do something like that, there probably should have been a hint at it, so that, people that aren't familiar with the games, then it makes more sense as to why he is the way he is. So that's one of those things that maybe this is just all, smoke in the air, and that's not actually the case at all. Maybe he really is just a really weird human, and it's just weird storytelling. But, thinking of it in that regard, that is something that helped me with that character a little bit more, is knowing that he might not be a human, and there's a reason why he acts the way he does.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe I'm glad I went up to an 8 if that explains it, and then that's, but they definitely should have put, that's bad storytelling to not give, hold that big of a detail out from a complete character's development for a future season. And personally, I mean, I would think, unless it's already renewed for next season, that's a bad call.
Yeah,
but it wasn't when they wrote it.
No, it wasn't. So but it is already renewed for a season 2, and I believe it's also in talks to already be renewed for a season 3 potentially. So it does seem as though they are looking to tell quite a bigger story than what this first season told. And you can also tell that with how the first season wrapped up. I mean, if it didn't get renewed for a season, it is kind of a complete story. There's obviously a cliffhanger and there's more to be seen there, but you kind of understand the world and all that stuff. So I am interested to see the way they go with that character, and I felt the same way. He was my least favorite character of the 3 main stories we got. I think there was a lot to be desired there, like you said, but that did help me with the aspect of that could potentially be why he is the way he is, why he is surviving the stuff that he's surviving, is because he's just not human.
Well, I hope he's not human, because at least it would explain why he can take a punch in the face by one of those suits.
Yes.
So the next thing I didn't like that I wanted to touch on was Lucy throwing the acid in the guy's face.
Mm-hmm.
Completely out of character for what they've shown of her. It didn't make sense in the moment. In hindsight, like, she didn't become this crazy paranoid person in one scene of seeing that, like, to the point where she would try to kill somebody for being there. Like, her character shown throughout the entire thing is, justified good, right? Like, she has a moral code. She tries to do the right thing all the time, and she's even seen that this is a weird place. They're going to try to figure out what's going on, and like, I understand that, like, she's on edge for the first time in her life, but to throw acid on some random dude's face without even seeing him, like, that level of character break for me is like it's bad writing. Like like I think a proper level of that would have been for her to continue hiding until found, and then they would have done like then tried to fight. But for her, without even knowing what he's going to do, throwing acid on her face is crazy, or his face is crazy.
See, now that's a scene that I really liked, and I really appreciated that type of character development for her. And I think it was one of the things that they tried to show is what the wasteland can do to you. She hadn't been out in it that long. She's just been out in it a few days, but it shows how drastically something like what is happening in this world can change a person. And I think she felt very lied to in that aspect of where she was, what the vault was doing. She had just seen some pretty creepy things on those screens. She saw that all these women were being, locked up in her mind. They weren't being treated fairly. And I thought that was actually a good character development for her to show that she has changed and she isn't this sweet, innocent girl anymore from Vault 33, right? She is completely changed and she's more so worried about protecting people like that and helping people in a different way rather than just playing the goody two shoes character. She's more concerned about helping these girls that are stuck in this chamber because she kind of knows, in the short few days that she's been out, what it's like to be treated poorly, which she had never experienced before.
Yeah, I mean, I get what they were going for. I just think it's too much too fast. Like I think it's bad for the character. And she wasn't trying to protect those people. She was trying to save her own skin. She tried to run out immediately after. She didn't try to finish the job so that she could get all those ladies out of there. She only tried to run as soon as she did it. Like I I understand what they were going for. I just think it was done poorly. Um but yeah, I do understand that they were trying to say that this would just like make any person abandon all their morals and go to self uh preservation mode, but that I just don't think, and I don't think she has that after. Like it's not like a flip is switched for her and she's completely like that the rest of the show. Like this is what like a singular moment, and then she does like she is less, but like that is a drastic moment. And I think it's a little over the top because they're not trying to, I think they're thinking people wouldn't get it if they didn't go that hard. And I think they really were like, let's just go all the way so everyone knows that she's changing. Like that could have been subtle. Like, and it could have been more in line with, they're not like when people change, they don't just make 180-degree flips, just her willing to fight that dude, to get out would have been a character switch because at the beginning of the show, she would have been like, hey, what are you doing in here? Like that would have been the character switch. I think that would have been better for me than the drastic over the top try to kill this guy with acid.
Well, and there's no telling she knew that was acid. I mean, she just grabbed a jar and threw it at him, right? So I don't know. I personally was not bothered by that scene. I actually really liked it, and I think you could see that it continues on throughout the show. With the ending. I mean, she's completely cold-hearted to her dad as soon as she kind of finds out all the stuff that's going on. I mean, she sees that her mom is there as a ghoul. First thing she does when she gets the chance is shoots her right in the head. I mean, I think that's the character development they were going for. And when you look at it as that drastic of a change, there had to be some sort of a middle ground throughout the show where you're like, because I feel like if she would have gone to that aspect, maybe she just tries to barely fight this guy. And, she's like, maybe that's not drastic enough to provoke that ending where she's really kind of like, what the heck is going on? Who is my dad? What happened to my mom? I think that was why I appreciated that so much, is because you actually got to see some of it to a little bit of a degree before we got the full swing like we did at the very end.
Yeah, but actually, the full swing of throwing acid on the guy's face is more than Mercy killing your mom, who's not a person anymore. Like, that's an easier choice to make. Like, from someone who has a moral standing, like, it is, like that's a monster, right? That is a human being. So, like, I think, like, the person you care about the most ending their suffering, right, of someone who you've thought was gone for a long time, and they have been gone. Like, that, they're no longer there. She's dead. And then, if she would have shot her dad in the face, I think that would have been the major switch, right? But she didn't. She didn't do anything to him. So I just don't think the drastics, like, they needed to go over the top to do a logical conclusion. Because I think the ending was logical. I think her, putting her mother down, who is a monster, was logical. And I think that, what she did with her father, other than let him put the suit on, was pretty logical. I have no clue how they both sat there while he, put on this steel watch suit.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I like I mean that was crazy. But yeah, for me it was just a character development thing that I didn't like. And another thing with that storyline that I had was the whole he nuked Shady Sands. Um I'm not quite sure I follow. So his wife take their two children to Shady Sands to live in a peaceful community that is thriving. Um, he leaves the vault, brings back his two children, and then nukes Shady Sands.
Hmm. I
Like,
love it. I think it makes so much sense because I think they did such a good job with showing the people of Vault Tech were not good people. We see Cooper start to find that out with his, the ghoul. He finds out his wife is just not a good person. She is willing to commit this mass genocide, as long as her family's fine. It doesn't bother her any. And we also find out that, these people are all going to be sitting in these little pods until it's their time to rule over a community, right? So they have no morals already to begin with. He's upset at the fact that his wife didn't like, the world they were in and what they were being given. So she takes her kids and leaves. I think he's just so bitter to the fact that once he gets his kid back, his wife couldn't care less to him at that point. And I think that's why we see him do that drastic. And I think it really pushes the scene of how evil the Vault Tech people are and how much of a villain Hank really is.
I mean, sure, but I mean, everyone, like, I'm not quite sure how it makes sense from a storyline for everyone in the vault. How does he have access to just nukes that are fine? How is, everyone okay with someone had left the vault, because that would have been knowledge, and then he left the vault, brought his kids back, like that wouldn't have been like known. I just think that, like, that opens up an entire different issue. Like, everyone says that they haven't left the vault for 230 years. It's the first time, and then, like, oh, actually, you know what? Like,
So I think
they
I
did
think
leave
that is
20 years
actually an
earlier.
aspect. I think that's actually an aspect of the show where no one knows anything about Vault 31, and we see that's where Norm goes, and it's not even really a vault; it's just where all these people are being kept in pods. We know Hank is from Vault 31, so they probably could have touched on it a little better, but that could have also been something that happened before Hank came to Vault 33. He could have had
Well,
something to do with
he
it.
came to Vault 33 to marry his wife.
Yeah, so I think
He didn't come over with his family, so it would have had to happen after he was in Vault 33.
well, and that's also something though he could have gone back to Vault 31, to let them out, or they could have gone out through Vault 31. He could have left through Vault 31, so there's Vault 33 had no idea of what was happening.
That's a lot of stretching.
I don't know. That's the story I'm getting, based off what we were shown with Norm being there and all that stuff. That's how I interpreted a lot of that stuff.
Okay, and Norm, which one are you referring to? His son?
Yes.
That's what you're getting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to me, that's a rough storyline. And also, um, in Fallout New Vegas, um, Shady Sands is still alive, which is timeline, like, pretty bad mess up apparently. That
I
those
believe
in
the
the
timeline
community,
is correct.
from all the threads on Reddit that I've been reading, the timeline is actually, they got that pretty wrong. That Shady Sands is a active member of the Republic of or the new Republic of California
Yeah.
in the
Because
game, and this takes place before the game apparently. And
I was under the interpretation that this took place a couple hundred years after.
uh, not after New Vegas game line, from what the people who played the game told me, and from what Reddit has said, confirmed.
Huh. I'll have to check. I'll have to look into that because that's what I thought. I thought it was take place after because I thought they had a timeline that I saw where it showed after. But if that is the case, that could be a big plot hole. Um, And they did confirm that Fallout New Vegas is canon to the Fallout lore. So that would be something that they would probably have to touch on, or something that they would have to patch up somehow, one way or another.
Which, I mean, is obviously easy to do, but who knows?
Yeah. So any other things that we both talked about how much we like the Ghoul. Did you at least feel like satisfied with the story we were getting from his character?
Oh, absolutely. I think everything with his wife and that storyline was super good. Some convenient things of how he just happens to find the I know he's like top notch tracker, but happens to find the um dog, and then happens to find like where the head is, and just happens to be in the hallway at the perfect time. Like, there's some conveniences that I can wink my head at, and it's good and fun because it's an awesome scene. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everything was great. Everything with the vaults, we touched on Vault 31, super good. Everything with the vault was super good. I was super happy with it. I really liked Buds. I think they did a really good job with him being that AI in the vault. We and most of the visuals are spectacular. I think the most glaring one for me at the end was that at the end fight, the background of that looked terrible. Like, just don't have that open. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
outside looks bad. Just make it a room, make it a full set, and just leave that. But other like the visuals were very, very good throughout the show. Some people said that the suits didn't look good all the time, and the only time I think the suit didn't look good was when it flew through the air in episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think the suits always looked great. Um, and I was very, very happy with it. The Thaddeus line of him turning into a ghoul, absolutely great. Super clumsy, stupid person accidentally drugs up and gets turned into a ghoul, hilarious. Um, but yeah, don't mistake my critiques for not enjoying the show. There were aspects I didn't like and that I thought were bad, but the reason I can even talk to them is because the rest of the show was so good. Um, these type of critiques are coming from the show is not perfection, right? This, rating something an 8 is pretty high praise for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I definitely really, really liked the show. But there definitely were problems that for me, and like for you, those aren't issues. Those aren't issues. You can look past those, or you think they were explained well, or you think that was good character development. Um, you know, which is good, right? That's why people are different. That's why they make so many different shows for people, so that they can enjoy stuff differently than others. And so, yeah, definitely good, Joe. I enjoyed a bunch of it, but there were some issues I had that kept it from being what everyone else is rating it, because currently it has an 8.6 on IMDb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been rated very well. I mean, I think the show's got a lot of high praise. I know a lot of places have given A's. I've seen some 9s out there. Now I know I'm in the minority with the 10. I just really enjoyed it that much. I think as far as video game adaptations go, and for someone that I just love playing video games so much. It was just so cool to see something that I've been playing for such a long time. It's been I didn't, like I said, never played through all of them all the way, but I've dabbled in just about all of them and played some of them quite extensively. It was just so cool to see that kind of come to life. So that's why I was more able to look past a lot of the things that probably weren't the best. And maybe if I rewatched the show, I'd be like, oh, you know what? Maybe that wasn't as good as I remember it. But just overall, absolutely loved it. And that's why I stick with the 10 there. I just really, really like it. And there's just not much I would change about it. And it's got me so excited for season 2. I think they really laid a great foundation for what's to come. And now, how do you feel about that? Are you excited for the story that is there to be told, or do you kind of hope that they do kind of similar to what the games do, where the games aren't connected to each other at all? I mean, they're completely different stories. Now, I don't think they're going to do that with the show. I'm sure we're going to get just a straight up second season, but it is some things that some people have talked about if season 2 will even be remotely close to what this season was.
I personally, I don't see the clear path for a season 2. I mean, clearly Thaddeus or Maximus is now in charge, or like in second in command of the Brotherhood. He's a knight. So like he's got a story to tell. But I don't see a clear path forward. Because him chasing after Lucy really doesn't seem like it's quite on the docket. And then, she's going after her father with the ghoul to find out where the ghoul's wife is, and family essentially. So, I mean, I just don't see that being enough motivation, um, really for a full season. But again, we really didn't know what this season was, except for her trying to find her dad, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Maybe that's a bad take, but I assume what we'll probably do is we'll get another vault, different storyline to tie into. They'll
Okay.
start in another vault, kind of like with someone like Lucy, and kind of tie in another thread, and then we'll follow our characters so that we're getting more content for the season rather than just following these three. Maybe spearhead it from a vault, the ghoul and Lucy, and then Maximus over here. So maybe that's what they do.
I think that'd be cool. That's how all the games are. You always start in a different vault somewhere. And like I said, none of the games are connected, but obviously it's still the same world. So I think that'd be really cool if they kind of continued that tradition with the show, how the games do it. And I think they did a really good job. And obviously we both thought the Brotherhood of Steel storyline was lacking, but I still did appreciate how they did tie all these stories together and how they all did eventually end up in the same place. I really liked that level of storytelling that I think they did a good job at. So I think adding another thread in there would just heighten the dynamic of all the different characters that we already have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the vaults were the best thing about it. So that and the goal. So they definitely need to keep that up. Like they need to keep some of the vaults front and center.
Yeah. So I'm excited for season 2. You said you are definitely going to be watching season 2, so I think that's a show that we're both going to be looking forward to. However, I'm sure it is something we're going to be waiting quite some time on. However, one thing that we are not waiting too much longer on is we do have the finale of the Bad Batch coming up. Now, I don't know if you are fully up to date on the Bad Batch currently.
I am
Okay.
fully up to date.
So I think as far as I'm concerned, I have enjoyed the show, but we both have our gripes about it. I think the last episode started to pick up a little bit, but I felt like it was just such an abrupt ending. Spoilers for you guys that haven't seen the Bad Batch. We're going back to back with the spoiler talk a little bit here. But right as soon as we finally get to see Hunter and the crew find out where Tanis is, get on a ship that's going there, the show just ends. That really bothered me, especially coming off of a show like Fallout that did have such long episodes, and I felt so satisfied by the end of each episode, even though I was able to binge watch it. I still feel like if I would have been watching it weekly, I would have been satisfied with how the story was being told in the time that we were being given, which is where something we've talked about with Bad Batches, we feel like the time management has not been good. I am expecting a big season finale. There's been some rumors that the finale is going to be over an hour long. I really hope so, because I feel like they have a lot to finish up on, and I don't just want to see, them going guns blazing into Mount Tantus and just, taking Omega back and freeing all the clones. I just don't think that makes sense. With how high level security this stuff is, it wouldn't make sense for this crew, even though they're very highly skilled. We saw what Asajj did to him, right? Kind of just manhandled them. And we have to assume that Tantus probably has somebody like the Emperor on speed dial if something ever were to really start going down. So I really hope that we do get an actually provoking story. But I'd be interested to see what you think about how the show has been so far up to this point and what you're hoping for in the finale.
Yeah, I've been really super disappointed with this season, and I'm being crazy negative Nancy this podcast, and I don't love that. But it's just, what's the story? Like, I'm literally asking you, what has been the story of this season?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It's really just been kind of chasing Omega around. I mean,
Right,
that's
like
kind of, it's
we
not really had a big push as to telling us. We have our thoughts of what Project Necromancer is, but they haven't told us. And this is something
no,
we should probably know by this point in the show.
and we all
You know,
know it's Emperor. It's
yes,
bringing the Emperor back to life after
yeah,
he's like. But does that
but
make
I feel like,
sense?
but that's something. And if it is, that's what they're going for. We need to know that by now. We don't need to be going into the. I guess there's what, 3? Is there 2 or 3 episodes? I think it might just be 2.
Two episodes left.
Yeah, so we got 2 episodes left. We need to know really what is going on here. I think just springing all this stuff on us is just not going to make a whole lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. And it also doesn't make sense for him already to be wanting to clone himself. This is like what, 2 years after Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, I mean, episode 1 of the Bad Batch took place during Order 66. I mean, it
Right.
is like,
So
yeah,
it's like maybe it's not even a year after. So
yeah,
like
this timeline is close.
it just does not, like, to me the story, you read the episode like summary for season 3 episode 1. Imprisoned on Tantus, Omega adjusts to a new life. And I think we could probably write in season 3 episode 14, which is second left.
Yep.
Imprisoned on Tantus, Omega adjusts to a new life and tries to
Yep.
escape. Like,
Yep.
I just like, we're
It's
in the
it's
same space. Like,
yep.
nothing happened except Crosshairs is out. That's the only thing that has happened.
Yep. Yeah, no, I
Nothing of
fully agree
value
with
has
you.
been added.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And like I said, I have such a soft spot for the Bad Batch. I'm still enjoying the episodes, and I think some of the action scenes are still really good and fun and all. But yeah, it is just leaving so much to be desired, especially as something that I think after season 2, we both really were loving. We were both fully invested in what we were getting told. And just to be at the fact that we're back where we're at now, and it just kind of feel like the story has not even, I wouldn't even say it hasn't progressed at all since season 2. If anything, it's regressed. We still don't know anything. So
And
I feel the exact same way as you do.
and even with the action, right? So action with animation is super good because you can do things you can't do normally.
Yeah.
And so all of our Star Wars animation allows for these incredible, acrobatics and lightsaber battles that are just super intense and fun to watch that would like pretty much be impossible for humans to do in the real world in live action. And we're just watching some clones run around and do some stuff like shooting. Like, so
Yep.
even the action scenes have been less than because it's like, okay, like this isn't what animated Star Wars is supposed to be. Animated Star Wars is supposed to be a spectacle. Like, we're going bigger than we could in live action. And I'm not seeing that in this season.
And to be fair, I will say that is one thing. I'm happy that this is not just flooded with Jedi and Inquisitors and all that stuff, because it just doesn't always need to be involved in everything. I think that's one of the things I liked about Andor so much, was that we didn't get to see that stuff. It was really just a story about, what the normal person in Star Wars that's trying to be a part of the rebellion goes through. Obviously, these people are clones, and they're very advanced level clones, so they're not quite the same as just your normal citizen. But I do feel the same way, with it being animated. They have such an opportunity to do so much more cool stuff that we just haven't got to see, and I feel like they need to take better advantage of those things than what they have.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, yeah, it's knocked the entire show down for me. At least 2 rating points.
So, speaking of rating points, we got 2 episodes to go. What are you sitting at for right now on this season?
On this season, I'm at a 5.
This season alone, a 5.
Yeah.
See, I'm not quite that low. I still have enjoyed myself. There's still been some parts that I do like. If you'd asked me what season 2 was, I would have said season 2 was a very solid 8.
Oh yeah.
Right now I'm clinging ever so slightly to a 7, just because I do enjoy the world so much, and I do like the Bad Batch characters and all that stuff. But man, I'm on the verge of saying 6, just about after every episode, if it weren't just for like a scene or two that I was like, oh, you know what, I kind of did enjoy that scene. So I feel exactly how you feel about it. It needs a lot of things to fix these last 2 episodes, and I'm really hoping they can figure it out.
Yeah. I don't see my rating for the season going up any higher. I do see my series rating going up or down. Because I was never on board as much as you were with this. I always
Yeah.
did like it, but it was never to the level that you did.
Mhm.
Because I was setting at a 7 for the season after season 2. I was at a 7 for the show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a little bit of a letdown for a final season of a show for sure.
Yeah, and I really hope that they can figure it out with these last 2 episodes. And I'm going to have faith that they do. I'm not going to give up on the show quite yet. But man, I'm right there with you. I think there's a lot to be left desired. I feel like we've said that a lot about a lot of things lately. But hopefully this is one thing that can actually fix that. Now, that's all the topics that I had to discuss. Zane, was there anything that you had on your mind that you wanted to go over right before we signed off on this episode of the Weekly Fix?
No, absolutely. We got our socials out there. We talked about maybe Comic Corner coming up. Let's make sure that somebody weighs in on that if you don't mind. And then absolutely some really fun stuff this week. A lot of good discussion. It's always fun when we can go back and forth with some different opinions. So I'm glad we had some switch ups on some of this stuff. But yeah, absolutely fun stuff coming ahead. And I'm really looking forward to what we got coming.
Yeah, and it's something we talked about in the past. Sometimes we feel like we are agreeing too much and we don't like it. So it's good to have an episode where we got to finally debate some stuff and go back and forth. But like Zane said, we do have our social medias out there. Check us out on Instagram and X. Like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff on there. I've got a lot of ideas that I want to talk with Zane about off the podcast. That's a little hint of some more things that could be coming. And I'm super excited for him. And I think he's going to really enjoy them as well. But like I said, reach out to us on those social media platforms. And if you guys have a comic for Comic Corner that you think we would enjoy or anything like that, make sure to reach us out on all those platforms. You guys can message us whenever you want, whatever you want at any time of the day. We're always going to be available to answer at some point. So as far as this episode goes of Weekly Fix, that'll be all. Thank you for listening.